In a harsh realm where power has reversed, men now live beneath the unyielding rule of women. Centuries earlier, a newly crowned demon lord addressed her followers with chilling determination. She decreed that every male must submit to women and kneel obediently at their feet. Soldiers whisper in disbelief as they realize the very laws of their world have been rewritten. In a lonely stone prison, chains rattle and distant echoes travel along the dark corridor. A uniformed woman looms over a restrained captive, remarking how pitiful and exposed his situation appears. Blindfolded and trembling, the prisoner squirms as she taunts him about his frantic reaction. Smirking coldly, she calls him a troublesome child who needs to be corrected. She suddenly presses in close, forcing stifling proximity that leaves him thrashing in panic. Overwhelmed and shaking, he hears her insist that this ordeal is meant as punishment. Her gloved fingers spark with magic as she reminds him he dared to defy authority and escape. Brandishing a crackling device, she declares his offense a serious crime that must be answered for. He hangs there, sweat dripping, as she announces that someone like him requires strict correction. With a chilling smile, she raises the device and promises a severe, unforgettable penalty. He tugs desperately at his restraints, pleading through the gag while her boots draw nearer. Close to hysteria, he begs for mercy as her calm voice asks if he is prepared. She activates the machine, boasting that this terrified captive makes the 99th subject of her collection. Gazing at the grim result with flushed cheeks, she murmurs that wasting something like this almost feels tragic. Far away, an enormous world tree named Yggdrasil shelters a mysterious nursing facility. At its roots, an old man called Jeser rubs his aching back and grosses about how bad weather torments his hips. The old man stiffens as a distant voice frantically calls out to him from atop the massive root. Turning with a tired sigh, Jeser hears the young elf introduce himself again as Miguel, the worker who keeps checking on him. Jeser frowns in confusion, wondering aloud why he came here, while Miguel reminds him this is the 6th time he has forgotten today. As rain clouds gather, Miguel scolds him for wandering during bad weather and begs him to return to his room where it is safe. Jeser peers down at the figures below and misnames his caretaker again, asking if some event is happening today. Miguel answers grimly that the gathering below is a unit of women recruiting new laborers. He explains that even staff from their own facility has been dragged out as extra manpower despite already being short-handed. Jeser watches the uniformed officer march past and mutters bitterly about this era of proclaimed female supremacy. Miguel reminds him, with weary repetition, that this system was decreed by the current demon lord and they are powerless to resist. Seeing the male workers forced to the ground, Miguel repeats the harsh, saying that a man is branded a loser from the moment he is born. Jeser's eyes dim with sorrow as he laments how men and women have ended up fighting each other like this. Miguel gently pats his shoulder and recalls hearing that, in Jeser's time, men and women once lived together in peace. Looking out over the vast tree, Miguel quietly says that if Jeser were still in power, the world might have turned out very differently. Suddenly Jeser's eyes flare as a memory surges, and a vision of two silhouettes clashing on a cliff explodes across his mind. A deafening bolt of lightning slams into the world tree, sending blinding light and crackling energy through the sky. Miguel stumbles through the smoke, shouting Jeser's name in panic and gasping that lightning struck their perch. He finds a smoldering, shadowed figure where the old man had been and cries out, realizing Jeser shielded him. As the smoke clears, a dark silhouette brushes off the sparks and calmly remarks that this is nothing compared to past lightning. The figure steps forward as a youthful man with sharp eyes and a composed smile, asking if Miguel is all right. Miguel, suddenly taller and staring at his own unfamiliar hands, flushes in shock while wondering who this stranger could be. The newly young Jeser leans in with a teasing smile as Miguel freezes, comparing his shock to seeing a monster. Jeser stares blankly ahead, still processing the unfamiliar youthful face he now wears. Gawking into a pocket mirror, he marvels aloud that he has become a handsome young man again. Perched on the massive root, Miguel nervously checks Jeser's condition, while Jeser boasts that his back and hips no longer hurt at all. Closing his eyes with a grin, Jeser softly praises this miraculous second youth as something truly wondrous. He suddenly pumps his fist and strides forward, declaring it time to go while Miguel panics and grabs him from behind. Miguel yells that they are atop the world tree and accuses Jeser of being reckless, while Jeser asks what the fuss is. Holding onto him tightly, Miguel accuses him of overestimating his new body, but Jeser insists he will be fine and asks where Miguel thought he was going. With a sly look over his shoulder, Jeser replies that his intention should be obvious. His eyes harden as he declares that the current demon lord is wrong, and that women and men must learn to live together. He plunges off the root with Miguel screaming behind him, shouting that he will give the demon lord a stern lecture as her senior. Landing with a dramatic thud, narration reveals Jeser Garcia, the demon lord from 2 generations ago who once unified the world and the demons. Miguel adjusts his glasses in awe, then sweat drops as he notices Jeser quietly nursing his aching feet. Arriving at the bustling town of Tierago near Yggdrasil, Jeser smiles and remarks how long it has been since he last walked outside. Watching the streets roll by, he notes that the once wooden, nature-filled city has transformed almost beyond recognition. Slipping into a side alley, he averts his eyes in flustered surprise at how boldly a passing woman's outfit outlines her figure. Surveying the crowd, he realizes with a mix of wonder and unease that the town is crammed with confident, striking women. His vision swims with faces and tails and horns as he mentally screams that there are women absolutely everywhere. Clenching his fist with a crooked grin, he admits to himself that he has no intention of complaining about this situation. Striding onward, he reddens at their daring attire and privately mutters that in a world without men, their uninhibited confidence has grown astonishingly bold. Jeser strolls through the city, grinning to himself, marveling that with so many beautiful women around it feels almost like heaven. His smile falters as he passes a woman parading through the street while a masked, chained man crawls beneath her like a beast of burden. Holding a tiny drink with a grim face, he mutters that this place is actually a hell cleverly disguised as paradise. Nearby women freeze and whisper in alarm, shocked that a freely walking male has suddenly appeared in their midst. As he keeps walking casually along the wall, someone off-screen panics and insists they must report this stray man to Khloe-sama at once. Jeser glances ahead in thought, recalling where the Demon Lord's castle used to stand and assuming the current ruler should still be there. He sizes up the distant fortress in his mind, reasoning that however strong the new Demon Lord's army is after centuries, it should not trouble him. Looking around the unfamiliar streets, he frowns and mutters that there ought to be a path to the castle somewhere nearby. Spotting an elf woman, he beams and leans in cheerfully, asking this lovely young lady to explain the city to him over tea. Her eyes bulge in horrified recognition as she realizes the overly friendly stranger at her side is actually a man. She recoils with a shriek, pointing at him and shouting about a stray male while he reaches out, flustered, trying to calm her down. Left standing alone, Jeser sulks and mutters that she did not have to reject him in such an extreme way. Before he can move, heavy cuffs clamp around his wrists from nowhere, leaving him wide-eyed and struggling in shock. He stares up at the sky in disbelief, sputtering that a pair of restraints just dropped onto him out of thin air. A huge, furred enforcer slams him to the ground with overwhelming force, driving the air from his lungs. Face pressed to the street, he gasps in frustration, demanding to know what outrageous thing is happening to him now. Pinned under the captor's weight, he recognizes the masked handlers from Yggdrasil as they announce they have seized a stray male. Their commanding officer steps forward with flushed excitement, exclaiming that capturing this one will finally complete her grim 100th record. Slung over a soldier's shoulder like cargo, Jeser hears the woman cheerfully order them to take him back to the castle while he quietly notes the unexpected opportunity this gives him. Later, he is unceremoniously hurled onto the hard floor before the looming silhouette of the Demon Lord's castle, crying out as he crashes down. Miguel jumps up angrily from the floor, shouting that they should treat this supposed old man more carefully. Khloe covers her mouth with mocking delight, calling him a shameless liar for claiming to be elderly on top of being male. Surrounded by her masked subordinates, she roars that he must not know who she is, while he protests his honesty and demands her name. With a stern glare, she introduces herself as Khloe Lineage, the law enforcer who governs this city's order. Later, shadows gather before the cell as someone mutters that allowing a stray male inside the castle was a serious mistake. Jeser, ears drooping, repeats the term stray male in confusion as the guards coldly remark on an uncaptured male roaming free. Outside his cell, Khloe sighs that the Demon Lord's army will make her life miserable if they discover this incident. Realizing where he has been brought, Jeser's eyes sharpen as he deduces they are inside the current Demon Lord's castle. Sitting cross-legged behind the bars, he calmly asks what a stray male is, while thinking he was right to let himself be captured. One of the handlers explains that any male servant must always be escorted by a mistress whenever he leaves, as it is strict law. Feigning rustic innocence, Jeser smiles politely and asks Khloe to explain this world's customs to a clueless country bumpkin like him. Watching chained workers trudge past outside, he somberly recalls that long ago men and women, though different, still stood as equals. He fixes Khloe with a serious stare and demands to know why that equality between men and women has vanished. Raising two fingers with forced nonchalance, Khloe says she will answer out of obligation, wondering what distant era he is even talking about. A narration bubble marks the beginning of her tale, stating that everything changed around 300 years ago. The scene shifts to a grim throne room where a powerful female demon seizes the defeated demon lord's seat and begins a new reign. Her stern figure fills the frame as narration names her the new demon lord, Mia Aligarcia. Khloe comments that this ruler bore the same family name as Jeser, while he strains to remember who that could be as her story continues. The flashback shows Mia proclaiming that all males must kneel and obey as a sinister curse descends upon them. Words carve across a black void, revealing that this curse stripped every man of his magic power. A stern narration explains that deprived of magic, the defeated males surrendered and allowed women to seize every seat of power. Khloe asks smugly if her lecture made sense while Jeser smiles faintly, deciding he must keep gathering information. Studying her cool expression, Jeser concludes that to change this twisted world, he first has to surpass this woman's authority. With a sly curl of his lips, he steadies himself, convinced that in his rejuvenated body he can finally take action. Before he can move, Khloe suddenly yanks him closer, leaving him wide-eyed and off balance. Leaning in so near their noses almost touch, she threatens him with a chillingly casual promise of severe punishment. Her eyes gleam as she announces this will now be her personal amusement, treating him like a new acquisition. Jeser glares back, his defiant stare catching her attention as she mutters about those rebellious eyes. Her mouth twists in a flushed, eerie smile as she admits that breaking resistant men is her favorite thrill. With a triumphant pose, she summons a massive, jagged pair of magical shears crackling with power. Jeser stares in horror as the weapon materializes above him, shouting in disbelief at the sudden scissors. Pointing proudly at the blade, Khloe boasts that her unique magic allows her to conjure any cruel instrument she desires. Grinning wildly, she explains that this very device is reserved for punishing would-be assassins of the Demon Lord. Brandishing the shears toward his waist, she orders him to comply so she can end his defiance in one snip. Off-panel, a dry remark notes what a disturbingly specific pastime this woman enjoys. Cracking his knuckles with a fearless grin, Jeser declares he dislikes pain and flatly refuses to cooperate. Chains snap as he tears the restraints apart, leaving Khloe stunned that he broke them so easily. Blushing with a shiver, she calls him incredibly strong and stares at him with unnerving excitement. Overcome with twisted delight, she charges toward him, shouting that this is exactly the kind of man she adores confronting. Calmly catching her weapon overhead, Jeser remarks that although he is rusty from peace, an attack like this is nothing to him. A spectral dragon-shaped force erupts from Khloe's shears as Jeser braces himself, cloak whipping in the blast. Khloe's eyes blaze with manic triumph as she reveals a second conjured pair of glowing shears and lunges, certain she has him. Steel clashes and stone explodes as her wild charge is parried, the impact carving a deep scar into the wall beside them. Jaw dropped at her shattered weapon, Khloe splutters about her broken tool while Jeser only smirks with infuriating calm. Touching his chin with smug confidence, Jeser warns her not to underestimate the power hidden in his restored body. His gaze sharpens to a cutting gleam as he coolly invites her to test exactly what he is capable of. Khloe's face twists with offended fury, veins popping as his taunts strike her pride like a slap. Throwing her head back with a sharp laugh, she admits she has never encountered a man as troublesome as this one. She snaps an order and hurls her masked beasts forward, vowing that forcing him to surrender will be immensely satisfying. One of the hulking slaves slams into Jeser, locking both arms in a crushing grapple. As multiple brutes pile on and tighten their holds, Khloe watches smugly, boasting that even he cannot escape their monstrous strength. With a predatory smile, she muses aloud about what harsh discipline to try now that his arms are supposedly sealed. Jeser, still grinning, admits their grip is impressive while his eyes say he is far from worried. With a casual twist and a sharp crack, he snaps the restraints apart and declares they were foolish to rush him. Moments later, the beasts lie sprawled unconscious at his feet, and he stretches like a man pleased with a long overdue workout. Khloe flinches as he explains that her slaves were felled in an instant and asks if she wants the details of their defeat. Walking toward her, he calmly reveals he was born without magic and instead forged his body through a secret martial art. He suddenly steps into her space, tapping her shoulder and urging her to experience that technique directly. Staring down at him in wary silence, Khloe stiffens as his hands rise, wondering uneasily what he intends. His fingertip presses a precise point on her side, triggering a sharp shock that makes her body betray her composure. Khloe stares in stunned disbelief, clutching her uniform as she realizes he somehow drew an invisible bone from her chest. Jeser coolly introduces the Aligarcia-style bone-extracting martial art and claims he has just removed one of the 48 love bones. Her fingers tremble toward her lips as an unfamiliar sensation hits, and her pupils shrink in shock. With a strangled cry, Khloe doubles over, her body jolting uncontrollably. Face blazing red, she gasps that her whole body is overheating and feels like it is on fire. Staggering back while he calmly watches, she pants that something is surging deep inside, and she cannot grasp what this sensation is. Hunched against the wall, she claws at her uniform, mumbling that the heat beneath the fabric is throbbing unbearably. Collapsing to her knees, she shivers and whimpers as the overwhelming reaction surges through her. Tears streaming, she babbles that touching the feverish spot only makes the dizzying rush stronger and begs for it not to stop. Mortified, she wonders how she ended up losing control like this in front of the very man she meant to torment. Clutching herself in frantic, jerky motions, she cries that the storm inside feels too intense for her to restrain. The narration explains that his legendary art extracts a minuscule love bone from 48 points in the body without causing physical harm. A whimsical diagram shows love-struck figures as a note explains the technique sprang from the idea of someone losing their backbone to infatuation. Smirking with 2 fingers raised, Jeser remarks that this level of stimulation is simply too much for someone so inexperienced. Breathing hard yet forcing herself upright, Khloe snarls that it was awful, not pleasant, and vows she will never lose to a man. Suddenly, one of the masked beasts lunges and slams her down, leaving her crying out in shock as she hits the floor. Pinned and wide-eyed, she stammers at her subordinates, demanding to know what on earth they think they are doing. A close-up of their gas-masked faces shows them breathing erratically, and an ominous thought notes that something about them is clearly wrong. Crushed under the creature's weight, Khloe cries that he is far too strong, and orders him to stop at once and remember she is his superior. A desperate shout tells the frenzied beast to halt immediately, as the scene crackles with chaotic, degrading tension. Jeser coolly observes the chaos and concludes his technique backfired on beast folk whose impulses outweigh genuine reason. Khloe's terrified eyes glisten as she weakly reaches out, gasping for someone to save her from this disgrace. Planting himself between her and the crazed beasts, Jeser turns with a taunting grin and invites them to focus on him instead. One of the masked monsters lunges so fast that Jeser has to whip his body aside with a startled shout. Watching them circle warily, he remarks that they must have realized getting close means having their mysterious bones torn out. Their expressionless masks face him in tense silence as a grim note admits that approaching beast folk head-on is no easy task. Jeser's smile sharpens as he clenches his fist and hints that keeping their distance will not save them. With an arrogant tilt of his chin, he announces that despite appearances he is absurdly strong. He explodes forward in a blur, his kick smashing into the beasts and sending them crashing back in a shower of debris. Spinning past Khloe, he flicks his hand and sends the gas canisters clattering harmlessly across the floor. A close shot of his fingers reveals 2 tiny crystalline bones now resting on his thumb. Holding them up, he explains he has plucked the so-called eruption bones from both beasts and now holds their fate in his grasp. As he tightens his grip, their bodies convulse violently, overwhelmed by an uncontrollable surge that drains every ounce of strength. A whimsical cutaway of a whale blasting seawater comically illustrates how the eruption bone unleashes an endless outpouring until nothing remains. The beast folk collapse in a twitching heap, limbs limp and bodies completely exhausted by the technique. Jeser looks down at them almost kindly, assuring they will live and calling it the perfect remedy for overheated males. Once the steam clears, the female knight steadies herself and quietly asks his name, to which he answers that he is Jeser. Without warning, she grabs his collar and presses in close, eyes squeezed shut in desperate resolve. Hovering near his face, she breathes his name as narration notes that love bone techniques can do more than merely weaken a target. Blushing fiercely yet staring straight at him, she begs him to become her master as a side note explains that a woman affected by such overwhelming stimulation will become hopelessly devoted to the one who extracted her love bone. Jeser watches Khloe clutch her emblem with dazed devotion, calmly noting that the instant he extracted her love bone, her loyalty shifted to him. Standing together by the wall, he admits to himself that it feels unsettling to be the one quietly influencing her will. Flushed and breathing hard, Khloe leans close and vows to serve him until her love bone regenerates, even if she can reprimand him later for it. Staring in surprise, the silver-haired man blurts out that her hair has changed. Looking at the strands herself, she quietly observes that her hair is already fading back to white. Finger on his chin, Jeser frowns and wonders if his restored youth is on a timer and that he needs to hurry. Over a backdrop of chaotic streets, his inner voice laments that the world has twisted into something deeply wrong. 2 hands clasped together as a quiet conviction declares that no one has the right to stand above anyone else. Watching a couple walk together nearby, he smirks that men and women should simply get along, and decides that bratty youth needs a proper lecture. Throwing out his hand with urgent bravado, Jeser demands to be taken to the demon lord immediately. Faced with his insistence, Khloe stiffens and stammers that she simply cannot comply. Her eyes droop with guilt and nervous sweat as she struggles to say what she must. A stark thought hangs in the darkness, hinting that the Demon Lord's fate has already changed. Empty prison cells yawn open in eerie silence, as if whoever was held here vanished long ago. Standing in the ruined corridor, Khloe finally admits she cannot guide him to the Demon Lord. Clutching her chest with tense fingers, she begins to reveal that the Demon Lord's situation is not what he thinks, leaving Jeser to wonder if she is the one. She hurriedly finishes that the Demon Lord has already been relocated, startling him with the implication. Jeser gapes in disbelief, blurting out that the Demon Lord is not even here. Metal restraints clatter to the ground as unseen hands unlock them, and the view cuts to the distant fortress against the sky. Now free and strolling outside with Khloe adjusting her uniform behind him, Jeser stretches contentedly and remarks how good the open air feels. Khloe stiffly explains that Demon Lord Mia used to live here until a few years ago. Pointing at the distant map, she calmly reveals Mia has moved all the way to Osirosia Kingdom, leaving Jeser yelling at the horizon. The narration paints Osirosia Kingdom as a frozen, iceberg-ringed frontier at the edge of the continent, crawling with high-level monsters. Frowning in thought, Jeser wonders why the Demon Lord would choose such a place while Khloe apologizes for being unable to escort him. Straightening proudly and pointing to her new armband, Khloe declares she has reclassified herself from law enforcer to Jeser's personal guard. Her gloved hands tighten around a rope as she mutters that she failed her master's orders and is unworthy to serve. Face flushed with frantic devotion, she shoves the rope at him and begs for discipline, while Jeser panics and tries to push it away. Still gripping the rope with sparkling eyes, she insists that the far-off Osirosia Kingdom will pose no problem for her at all. Jeser smirks confidently, boasting that reaching such a place is easy because he has a gifted servant with a legendary partner of jet black fur. With theatrical flair, he thrusts out his hand and commands his raging demon chariot, Morpheus, to appear. Nothing happens but awkward snapping gestures, leaving both him and Khloe blinking in confused silence. Grimacing, he apologetically starts to explain that normally the creature would rush to him instantly. Khloe then blurts out that, according to Wikipedia, the mighty beast he speaks of actually died about 200 years ago, leaving Jeser screaming in shock. Collapsed and sulking on the ground, he groans that he has simply been alive far too long, while she hesitantly asks how he even knew of such a monster. Khloe nervously adds that even if the beast were still around, it would never be something an ordinary citizen could casually command. Jeser begins to blurt out the real reason, then freezes mid-sentence as a dangerous realization hits him. Internally wincing, he decides things would get messy if she learned he was the former Demon Lord and blames his loose tongue on lingering Chunibu delusions. Trying to regain his cool, he scoffs to himself that she actually fell for such a flimsy explanation. Suddenly petals swirl and Khloe gasps as Jeser pitches forward out of sight in front of her. The next moment she is kneeling beside his collapsed, twitching body, screaming his name in alarm as the scene cuts off in a burst of panic. Clutching his back in pain, Jeser groans that he needs to lie down while Khloe panics beside him. Khloe gulps and realizes she must quickly find a safe, private place for him to rest. Blushing feverishly, she suggests they head to a nearby inn together, her nervous excitement spilling over. The view lingers on the quiet inn exterior as a sly thought suggests they could end up talking about all kinds of things inside. Inside the dim room, Jeser sits awkwardly as Khloe kneels before him, confessing this is her first time handling such a situation. Face burning, she admits she lacks real experience but claims to know the methods and promises to do her utmost for Jeser. Tongue out in flustered concentration, she nervously proposes starting with something bold despite not being used to it. She leans toward him with manic enthusiasm, warning she might mess up badly even as he struggles to hold her back. Snapping out of it, she squeezes her cheeks and, imagining some lurid handbook, wonders if another over-the-top method would be better. An old man suddenly totters up behind her, shivering, while she turns to him with wary confusion. Her eyes bulge as she realizes the frail stranger is looming right where Jeser should be. Staring at his wrinkled hands, the old man trembles and gasps that he has reverted to being an ancient geezer. As Khloe frantically searches for Jeser, he watches her from behind, sadly wondering if his borrowed youth ended before he could do anything meaningful. She charges through the trees screaming his name, while the old man resignedly mutters that this is simply how nature works. Racing off in a panic, Khloe calls for him at the top of her lungs as the old man calmly muses about finding a way to reach the Demon Lord. Scratching his beard, he decides he will head to the bazaar to look for a riding beast that can carry him to his destination. Shuffling through the bustling streets, he realizes Khloe is gone, and distracted by the memory of a goblin rice cracker shop, loses track of the bazaar entirely. A massive reptilian mount thunders past with a rider, and he notes wryly that some relics of the old demon realm still wander the city. A sharp-voiced woman shouts for him to watch out as danger suddenly barrels toward the distracted old man. The next instant she has tackled him out of harm's way, then helps him up and calmly insists on carrying him across the perilous street. The old man's eyes widen and tingle with emotion as he murmurs how reassuring it is to meet a kind soul. Hoisted on the woman's back, he relaxes into the ride, quietly savoring the strangely nostalgic comfort. Reaching the curb together, she warns him to stay safe while he politely thanks her, and she brushes it off as nothing. With a bright grin and proud pose, she proclaims that helping others is only natural for someone from a noble lineage. Waving energetically, the old man excuses himself, saying he has business to take care of as she cheerfully sees him off. Clutching his wallet with a gentle smile, he shuffles away and thinks fondly to himself what a considerate young lady she was. Voices in the bustling market roar higher and higher as bidding for a mount creature suddenly skyrockets to 80 gold. On stage, the auctioneer triumphantly slams her hammer and announces the fearsome steed Nightmare sold for 82 gold. Watching the roaring crowd and chained beasts, the old man realizes he has stumbled into a mount auction just as a handler ushers out the next lot. Backstage, a sharp-eyed woman orders her subordinate to make a sale or else, while the man nervously wonders what creature he must present next. Khloe bursts onto the platform in tight training clothes, arms flung high as the announcer proudly declares her today's featured product. Close up, she beams through her glasses and announces that bidding for this noble girl starts at a staggering 500 gold. From the stands, the old man squints in disbelief as he recognizes the girl joyfully parading on stage and hears her hyped up as the star of the auction. Her sparkling eyes shine with misplaced pride as she repeats that she is of noble blood and worth at least 500 gold, leaving him stunned that his rescuer is being sold. The bunny-eared auctioneer coolly cuts her off with a smile, slashing the starting price down to a single silver coin as Khloe reels in horror at how cheap that sounds. Dodging between taller bidders, the old man frowns and mutters that he never imagined the woman who helped him would be treated like mere merchandise. Outside the tent, the crowd mills restlessly around the stage as the auction for the embarrassed Khloe continues under the striped pavilion. A strange chill ripples through the gathering, and the old man notices faces tense, as if the very mood of the venue has abruptly shifted. He stares up at the platform, baffled that no one is bidding on her despite the announcer shouting what a bargain she is at such a low price. Khloe, flustered but desperate, twirls and poses with forced cheer, bragging that she can sing and dance and has proper lineage, yet her frantic performance only deepens the awkward silence. Khloe pumps her fists and shouts that she hardly eats anything, proudly advertising herself as easy to maintain. Flustered yet stubbornly posing, she boasts that she looks cute and has an impressive figure that anyone would be lucky to show. Still trying to entice bidders, she nervously bites into her fruit and hints that she could keep someone company during quiet nights. From the crowd, onlookers grumble in confusion about the lack of bids while Khloe desperately yells for someone, anyone, to buy her. Munching on a banana with a troubled hum, she eyes the uninterested audience and wonders what else she can try. Suddenly, she slaps a hand to her forehead and blurts out that she forgot to use her transformation trick. She pulls her limbs inside her loose clothes with a shout, puffing herself up into a strange rounded shape. A bearded spectator pauses mid-snack, baffled as he watches her vanish into the outfit and questions what on earth she is doing. With a thunderous burst from underground, a huge mole-like beast labeled a high-mobility ground tank, Morpheus, erupts onto the scene. Close-ups linger on its dignified face, dark fur, and ridiculously fluffy bulk, framing it like a legendary mount from old tales. The silver-haired youth swallows hard, staring at his snack as certainty flashes in his eyes. Leaning forward with sudden fervor, he cries out that this creature named Morpheus is clearly his destined partner. Towering over the market, Morpheus rumbles hungrily yet promises riders a soft, cozy journey atop its plush back. A moment later, it casually chomps down, startling passers-by as someone yelps in disbelief at the massive bite. The bunny-eared auctioneer shrieks for it not to wreck the stage while debris flies and Khloe squeals in alarm. Morpheus closes its eyes in bliss and declares the taste amazing, while others sigh in exhausted relief. Then its face freezes in horror as it realizes it has ruined everything once again. From the shattered platform, a masked woman glares up at the hulking beast, radiating a dark, oppressive fury. She lunges in a rage, smashing into Morpheus and roaring that it is nothing but useless junk for destroying her property. Cowering on the ground, Morpheus begs her to stop as she keeps striking and demands to know how it will repay the obliterated stage. The horned woman shoves a paper in Khloe's face, screeching for her to look at the crushing invoice. Kicking her aside, the woman snarls that Khloe is worthless merchandise who consumes far more food than anyone else. Raising a blazing spell overhead, she coldly declares that someone like Khloe is better disposed of entirely. Khloe's eyes shake wide as terror floods her at the thought of meeting such an end. A tiny Khloe appears with her siblings, quietly noting she was always the youngest of 3. She remembers peaceful days with her mother and siblings as their mother often told them stories of the Demon Lord. Her mother, speaking proudly, explains that their grandfather once served a kind and admirable Demon Lord. Little Khloe, eyes sparkling behind her glasses, dreams aloud of becoming the Demon Lord's devoted chariot too. Khloe walks on alone, recalling how she endured hunger, insults, kidnapping, and harsh weather because of her countless blunders. Smiling through tears, she thinks how her dreams and her inherited blood have always pushed her forward. As a blazing attack hurtles down, she bitterly thinks it would be cruel if everything ended here. Bruised and shaking, Khloe whispers Demon Lord Sama like a final prayer. The horned woman unleashes a massive blast and screams for Khloe to disappear. Laughing harshly in the smoke, she mocks that at least Khloe will still be useful in some way. Suddenly, something slams into her mouth, cutting her off mid-taunt with a stunned choke. Jeser appears carrying Khloe in his arms, calmly telling the raging woman to eat the snack and relax before stress ruins her complexion. The furious slaver gapes at them and demands to know who this intruder even is. Khloe stares up at the handsome stranger, stunned as he leans close with a casual air and an oddly familiar warmth. With a cocky grin, he taps his chin and introduces himself as just a passerby named Nojk-san. Hearing that name, the horned woman trembles with outrage that some mere man named Nojk-san dares to stand in her way. Nojk watches the girls recoil and, with a sly smile, asks if they dislike the goblin shop snacks that he personally finds delicious. Face sparkling, he pumps his fist and boasts that the treat has miraculously restored his youth. Khloe stares at his confident back, bewildered yet oddly secure as she wonders who this man really is. Nibbling the snack, Khloe's eyes widen in surprise as she admits it actually tastes amazing. The horned woman snarls that she is in a foul mood, her temper crackling like fire. Nojk casually restrains the panicked Khloe, remarking that on top of everything he has now caught a strange test subject. A cat-tailed youth bolts through the chaos, shouting that his enslaved companion has fled. Surrounded by flames and wreckage, the furious master vows not to rest until everything around her is burned to cinders. Khloe clings to Nojk in terror, protesting that her master's escaped servant is not his fault, while he dryly notes how irritable the woman is. From a short distance, the escaped girl warns Nojk that as a man he should run away at once. Eyes wide with dread, she explains that her master is a fire mage whose power swells with rage and will incinerate them all if they stay. Bare feet slapping the ground, she thanks him for trying to help but insists he cannot possibly win against her master. Throwing her arms wide in front of him, Khloe yells for Nojk to flee. Facing the looming flames, Khloe apologizes to her enraged master. Through trembling lips, she insists all the trouble is her fault for overeating and begs that Nojk's life be spared. Sobbing, she confesses to devouring the other product's food, the slave's rations, and even the cake her master had been saving, accepting full blame. Nojk strides forward with an easy grin, telling her there is nothing to fear. Calmly addressing the panicked girl, he declares that he is overwhelmingly strong and can defeat her master without causing lasting harm. Adjusting his glasses with chilling composure, he prepares to fight and muses aloud about locating his opponent's fragile points while she screams for him to burn. His eye flashes open with uncanny focus as he activates his Jeser eye, startling even himself. Dark magic writhes around the horned woman as she advances, her silhouette swallowed by inky shadows. A grim observation notes that every bone inside her body has been stained pitch black. Jeser studies her from afar, sensing a deep hatred soaked into her magic and wondering why it clings to her so strongly. The cat-tailed girl rushes to his side, explaining that her master was once kind but grew irritable and cruel as her power swelled. Images of corrupted women flash behind Jeser as he realizes the Demon Lord weakened men by stealing their magic and twisted women by gifting them toxic power. Smirking with sharp resolve, he declares that if this is the Demon Lord's method, then there is only one possible countermeasure. A roaring inferno crashes down toward him, making Khloe scream, "Mister," as the battlefield erupts. The horned woman snarls that he keeps dodging and screeches for him to stop running and perish already. Jeser steps through the flames with a focused glare, thrusting out his hand to meet the oncoming blaze head-on. She gapes in disbelief, shrieking that he actually blocked her fire with nothing but his bare hand. In a blur of movement, he slips past her guard and strikes with his Ala Garcia-style bone-extracting martial art. Eyes glinting, he vows to pull out each corrupted bone one by one until every last trace of defilement is gone. Grinning, he presents an invisible prize and announces he has removed one of her 48 love bones, the so-called wise bone. Khloe gapes from the sidelines, stammering in confusion as she tries to understand what just happened. The horned woman clutches herself uneasily, gasping that something feels wrong and demanding to know what he did. Her face flushes and her breath turns uneven as an unseen force courses through her, making her body react against her will. A caption notes in alarm that every part of her is growing overly sensitive, leaving her shaken and off balance. Jeser narrows his eyes with a dark chuckle, hinting that once this particular bone is destroyed, her frenzied impulses will flip into a cold, detached calm. Moments later, she smooths her envelope and, expression flat, tells him to proceed with the transaction as she enters a detached sage mode. Khloe yelps Master, when her usually fearsome owner, now eerily composed, casually confirms with Jeser that this trembling girl is the one he wants. The horned woman, now unnervingly calm, admits she wants to part with Khloe, even though there are no other buyers right now. She methodically lists every expense Khloe has caused and says it would be ideal if Jeser covered all the costs, so she can at least break even. Beaming with a merchant smile, she presents her offer, shocking Khloe with a bill of 82 gold coins that rivals a nightmare's price. Khloe jolts as a small pouch is suddenly held out toward her, unsure what is happening. The woman's hand hesitates over the contract, softening as she says she might reconsider if Jeser truly promises to cherish Khloe. With a wry wink, she slashes the number and offers a special deal, Khloe for only 10 gold coins. Khloe bursts into grateful tears and calls out to her master while the woman mutters that profit matters, but the well-being of her goods matters too. Watching Khloe's radiant smile, the horned woman privately thinks that this is the girl's real face, and it suits her. Jeser confidently waves off the discount, declaring he will pay full price, making Khloe marvel at his generosity. A beat later, his bravado crumbles as he remembers he leapt into the fray with empty pockets. Peeking from the bushes, he groans that he already spent his spare change on rice crackers and may have to trade his kimono. A stern officer strides up, saying she came to investigate the disturbance and asking if it has already been resolved. Still scanning the area, she wonders where Jeser went, then suddenly notices Khloe and calls out to her. Her eyes light up in awe as she realizes Jeser-sama is actually here. Jeser, half-dressed and unfazed, turns toward her with a sparkle, saying her timing is perfect while Khloe and the horned woman freeze in shock. The officer's jaw drops, and she demands to know what on earth this bizarre scene is. Her single wide eye fills the panel, silently screaming disbelief at whatever madness she just walked into. A caption dryly notes that Jeser, who had disappeared earlier, is now standing boldly before the girls while they stare at him as if he were a strange dish. From the doorway, the officer reaches out, calling Khloe's name and saying she arrived at just the right moment, even as Khloe begs her not to step closer. A monstrous figure bursts onto the scene, howling possessively that Jeser's very presence belongs to it as fiery chaos erupts around them. Khloe flails in panic, clinging to Jeser as he shouts in surprise while the horned woman urges everyone to calm down. A close-up of Flame's tense profile shows her answering with a firm, reluctant okay. Smiling briskly, Flame asks the goblin workers to repair yet another damaged tire as they shuffle around her in confusion. The officer stares over her cup, stunned as she repeats that he plans to trade his clothes instead of money to buy a mount. Rolling her eyes in exasperation, she groans that he should have explained that from the beginning while he awkwardly trails off. Flame gestures to crates of goods, explaining these are luxury items so costly that even she feels unworthy of purchasing them. Hearing this, Khloe hunches over the table and mutters that in that case she feels embarrassed as well. A view of a cup accompanies the horned woman asking who this stranger is, while another voice admits they have not introduced themselves. Jeser cheerfully introduces himself as Gigi and points to his straight-backed companion, announcing that she is Khloe. Beaming, Flame introduces herself as a merchant and gushes that it is an honor to meet Khloe, whose notorious exploits precede her, leaving Khloe baffled. Leaping up with crossed arms, Khloe loudly claims her codename is ZZ Morpheus, while the officer below squints in utter confusion. Sitting across the table, the officer asks why he cannot just use the demon bank for bartering, prompting him to blink and ask what that is. Holding up her device, she passionately explains that by registering magic with financial institutions, anyone can use their services anywhere, even those with weak powers. Jeser calmly forms an okay sign and admits he always relies on others for money because he was born with no magical power at all. The officer jolts upright, aghast that he has been paying strictly in cash despite living in a supposedly cashless era. Jeser recalls a past purchase as a shopkeeper panics over his strange commemorative coins, raging that this is real money while others suspect counterfeits. Resigned, Khloe asks what else she can do and starts to offer herself as collateral, but Jeser stops her with a quiet, "Wait, Khloe." Smirking with reckless confidence, he declares that when he lacks funds, he simply creates the money himself. A dark panel hangs in the air as his ominous "for example" trails off. With a sly smile and finger to his lips, Jeser whispers his dubious solution, a shady service he calls Delivery Health. Khloe and Flame turn pitch black with shock as Jeser cheerfully announces that practical training for his suspiciously named Delivery Health is about to start. A calm voice urges them to relax and follow instructions while an unseen hand guides them through the tense rehearsal. Flushed and overwhelmed, the two girls struggle to imitate his example as he encourages them to shower customers with enthusiastic friendliness. Later, Jeser smugly clarifies that by Delivery Health, he meant a wholesome meal delivery service for salads and other healthy food, baffling his exhausted trainees. Khloe snaps her hand up with a sharp "hey hey" as she hurriedly volunteers someone else for the job. A bespectacled beast girl dashes in waving a knife, shouting that she will borrow ingredients because she loves both eating and cooking. Moments later, she proudly unveils a table piled high with gleaming dishes as the others gasp that everything looks amazing. She beams with a blush as they devour the food, boasting that she can whip up hearty and healthy meals in no time. Jeser coolly asks Flame for a little more time to gather funds, assuring her he has no objections as long as she gets paid. Grinning, the cook proclaims the limited edition Delivery Health food service officially open, warning it will be no easy task. Jeser shoulders a bulging delivery bag, marveling at the Demon Bulletin Board's advanced tech while thanking Khloe for helping handle the incoming orders. Disguised under a bucket so no one realizes he is a man, Jeser rallies the team to split the routes and get every order delivered. A quiet exterior shot of a large house sets the scene as their first destination looms. A hungry demon woman flings open her door, delighted that the Delivery Healthy service arrives so fast as Jeser politely announces her order's arrival. Their nervous cook appears at the threshold clutching the parcel, eyes wide with tension as she faces her first real customer. Sweating and flustered, she stammers and begs the customer to please accept the carefully prepared meal. Panels flash by showing Jeser sprinting through alleys and Khloe hustling between homes as a caption notes their deliveries continued until sunset. Later, the trio staggers back with armfuls of empty containers, Khloe remarking how unexpectedly busy the service became in just half a day. Khloe shrieks when Flame reads out complaints that, while the food was great, some customers found droplets suspiciously decorating their meals. Jeser sheepishly admits the dishes tempted him too much, then gently pats Morpheus's head and asks customers not to be too hard on her since she cooked everything with such effort. The satisfied customer leans in a little too close and asks if the disguised courier provides anything beyond regular deliveries while he forces a strained smile. Flame admits that after subtracting ingredient costs, the profits are almost nothing and fears they will never reach their goal at this rate. Jeser abruptly bolts off on another errand, leaving more to flail after him and shout that she is going too. Night settles over a lonely house as Khloe nervously calls out that Delivery Healthy has arrived. Waiting on the doorstep with Moore, she scowls at the silence and wonders aloud if the customer is not home. As Moore's stomach growls, Khloe urges her to endure the hunger just a little longer. Peering around the side of the house, Moore yelps for Khloe to look while Khloe keeps calling out about their delivery. They discover an elderly demon collapsed in the garden and Moore screams "Grandma" in horror. In a stark flashback, Khloe's cold gaze and inner voice confess that she honestly cannot stand this woman. Jealous thoughts churn as she remembers how the horned woman cozied up to Gigi and even made him pawn his clothes for her sake. Khloe recalls trailing Jeser to keep him out of trouble, only for Moore's panicked cry of "Khloe-san, look," to snap her back to the present. Rushing over, Khloe realizes the old woman has completely collapsed and shouts that this grandma has fainted. Closer inspection shows the elder struggling for air, her face twisted with pain. Gritting her teeth, Khloe promises to call for help immediately while Moore trembles beside the motionless body. Moore sobs and begs her grandmother to hold on as Khloe, stunned by the chaos, can only yell in disbelief. Out by the road, Khloe reaches someone and learns a massive lightning strike earlier has left the area in terrible condition. The officer explains that the damage has caused a severe staff shortage, so no medical team can come for the time being, leaving Moore to cry no way. Watching the grandmother lying helplessly in the grass, Khloe's conscience insists she cannot walk away from someone in such distress, yet she grips her device in frustration, knowing she can only summon harsh instruments instead of healing magic and wondering what they should do. Moore, drenched in sweat and fear, cries that they must get the old woman to a hospital at once, even though reaching it means crossing the dangerous forest. The grim report warns that, in her current state, The old woman might only survive another 30 minutes. Khloe and Mor fret that even with a summoned carriage or magic taxi, the journey would still take over an hour, wishing desperately for a faster way. A star-strewn sky hangs over distant mountains as someone estimates 50 kilometers to the forest's depths. Eyes gleaming behind her glasses, Khloe confirms they must somehow cross that distance in under 30 minutes. Massive rodent-like beasts thunder forward as the officer gasps, swept up in their wild charge. Racing along the path with Khloe in tow, Mor boasts breathlessly that running is the one thing she does even better than cooking. Trees blur past while a narrator marvels that her speed outstrips any dragon or wyvern. Sweat-streaked but hopeful, Flame dares to think they might actually make it in time like this. Clinging to Mor's back, Flame yelps as their mount abruptly skids to a halt. Staring ahead, she demands to know why they stopped, only to see the road shearing off into a yawning chasm. A wide shot of the unnatural gorge prompts the warning that such a rift should not exist here, and Mor must proceed with extreme care. Mor sinks to her knees at the edge, stammering that she cannot handle high places, while Flame blurts out in disbelief that she is afraid of heights. Gazing over the broken canyon, Flame mutters they lack time for a detour and wonders desperately if some bridge could possibly span it. Khloe repeats the word bridge in shock, as if the idea has jolted something loose in her mind. In the dark treetops, Flame asks Mor to knock down nearby trees, protesting that such a distance could never make a real bridge. Perched on their beast, Khloe counters with fierce confidence that they can manage it if they work together. The creature's eye sharpens with resolve, admitting it does not really understand the plan but is ready anyway. Mor gnaws furiously through trunks while Khloe crackles with power at her side, shouting that she will make it work. Whips of enchanted rope explode from Khloe's magic as she unleashes a technique she calls torture rope. Standing proudly before a hastily woven suspension bridge, Khloe tugs the lines and announces with a playful edge that binding just happens to be one of her specialties. The trembling beast shivers at the canyon's rim while Khloe urges it to stay strong despite its fear. Resting in a hospital bed under the night sky, the recovered grandmother smiles weakly and asks if they were the ones who saved her. Khloe admits she does not know every detail but says she is simply relieved the old woman is safe, earning a soft thanks. The grandmother cheerfully praises delivery health, hugging Mor tight and saying she wisely called them the moment she saw the ad. Panicking over the earlier mishap, Khloe and Mor bow an apology and promise to recreate the ruined meal immediately. Before they can move, the grandmother calmly takes a bite anyway, leaving the two girls frozen in alarm. Relaxing with a satisfied smile, she declares the food delicious and says ordering from them was absolutely the right choice. Then, growing curious, she asks why such a good service only operates at certain times. Khloe nearly blurts out the real reason, but Mor's frantic correction that it is for Gigi to buy her bursts out and throws everything into chaos. Khloe clamps a hand over Mor's mouth and awkwardly explains they are just doing it because they desperately need money. The grandmother leans in with a pitying coo that they must be struggling, while Khloe begs her to order again and Mor watches nervously. Deciding to show proper gratitude, the old woman pulls out her device and offers them a tip on the spot. Khloe and Mor stare at the screen in shock as the payment confirms a staggering deposit of 100 gold coins. Blushing and flustered, Khloe stammers if it was really intentional, but the grandmother insists they accept it as thanks for saving her life. Outside the room, Khloe bows repeatedly with the empty delivery bag while Mor leaps into the air, unable to contain her joy. Left alone, the grandmother's smile fades as she quietly mentions hearing that Gigi entered a facility after suffering mental troubles. A caption notes that, elsewhere, she admits she never expected Gigi to still be alive. Back at the shop, Jeser scrambles in the kitchen as the terminal blares non-stop orders and he panics about Mor and Khloe's absence. His partner yells back that he has never cooked either, demanding to know what Jeser expects him to do. Another demon watches them flail at the stove, begging not to be dragged into this disaster as the narrator states they are clearly overwhelmed by the avalanche of orders.